Hey everybody, I'm John Granado. That's Lance Zerline. You can hear us mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet so you get all of our content here at SportsMap HOU. Lance, based on what you're hearing, if the Texans made a move on Caserio right after the draft, where would that be coming from? You think that's somewhat of where how the fans are reacting, or what the fans think of Nick Caserio?
No, it's all ownership. I mean, if they make a change on, I haven't heard anything other than the fact that I did hear some teams saying that, they thought there was a little buzz that Nick could be on the hot seat and maybe could be gone after the draft. Actually, I got that from a media member. If that's the case, I think it really speaks to the fact that maybe Cal McNair and Hannah McNair, the family, the organization, the ownership, has maybe lost some faith and some confidence in Nick Caserio. And, his press conference where he seemed to be unsure of his situation, that was something that was a little strange for us. And now that Jack Easterby's out of the building, that's the guy that brought Nick Caserio in, negotiated his deal. You do wonder maybe a little bit if maybe Hannah and Cal McNair and ownership group looks at Nick Caserio as a Jack Easterby guy.
Well,
whether that's fair or not, that could be the case.
There are still plenty of people in the building that Caserio had a hand in hiring, but that Easterby had a hand in hiring. But Caserio is the most public guy, right? I don't any other people that Easterby had a hand in are probably all gone. And I could certainly see where the McNairs would want to separate. That era is over. I mean, it was a disaster. Let's get away from all of that. I could see where Caserio is still sitting there, and they could probably, with a side eye, you're still a guy that we associate with Jack Easterby.
Yeah, but I think that's unfair. I mean, Nick Caserio built himself up into who he was before Jack Easterby was ever part of the Patriots. He was well respected before then. The Texans sought him out before Jack Easterby. Well, I mean, Jack was involved, obviously, with Bill O'Brien at that particular time. But so I think that's kind of unfair. I think, honestly, if you're going to get rid of Nick Caserio, it's because maybe you feel like there's someone who's better, and maybe there's someone who will click with your new head coach, DeMeco Ryans, more. I think it would be maybe have more to do with that than with anything. However, I think it is worth noting that Easterby was part of the Caserio thing. So,
not only part of it, Caserio wasn't even on their radar with the search firm, or he wasn't mentioned at all,
right?
Until Easterby stepped in and they grabbed that plane to go get him.
Yeah, that's true. And so, just when you think about that alone, it could be one of those situations where they say, look, what has he done so far that gives us confidence? Yeah. I certainly don't put all this on Nick Caserio. I don't really think he's had a great opportunity. He's had one draft. But that one draft did have, does it count against him that Sauce Gardner went a pick after a cornerback in Derek Stingley, who really had been hurt 2 previous years and hadn't played good football since 19? I mean, if it were me personally as an owner, I would be paying attention to that personally.
Absolutely. But why do it? Listen, if Caserio's on the hot seat and he has to have a great draft, that affects his draft. If Caserio's on the hot seat, I think there's absolutely they absolutely have to grab a quarterback here with the number 2 pick, because he'll have all the fan base. Even if it's C.J. Stroud, they don't love C.J. Stroud. If Caserio feels like his job is on the line, because a rookie quarterback actually buys you another year, no?
Well, unless the organization unless ownership already decided they're going to go on a different level.
Then why would you do it after the draft and let him draft?
Because you can't. Well, what are you going to do? Charlie Casserly was famously, I found this out years later, talking to one of the people from the Texans. Casserly was a huge part of the 2006 draft where he knew he was on the way out, and frankly, it's one of the best drafts that they've ever had. And I couldn't believe Charlie Casserly was a big part of it, but Charlie was a big part of that along with Gary Kubiak. I think right now what you could do is allow more input or control for DeMeco Ryans, but he's never been in that position either. He's never picked players, and we just got through it, this pick and let a coach pick players stuff with Bill O'Brien. So I think you trust Nick to do what he's going to do, and the people you're going to hire work for other teams right now. So if you were going to make a change, it would have been right after the year, and then you bring him in. It's way too late now to bring someone in from another team. They're not in tune with the scouting department. I mean, you have no chance now.
Yeah, and well, listen, do you agree that if he's on the hot seat, they're drafting a quarterback?
See, to me, I keep Nick Caserio all next year, and if you want to make a change, you make it after the year's over, and then you bring a GM if you want to do it. Now, the flip side of that is if you bring a GM right after the draft, then they put their own scouting people in place. They put their own directors of, pro personnel and scouting, and they say, this is the way that we scout. Here's our terminology. Here's our grading scale. That's the advantage of doing it right after the draft. But does it increase the likelihood of quarterback? No, I don't think it does. But you do make
disagree.
a good point that
I disagree wholeheartedly.
If the owners want a quarterback, they'll tell you got to pick quarterback, and that's going to be that.
Well, here's the deal: is if the fan base, I think, will riot if you take a Will Anderson with that number 2 pick.
The fan base will also riot if you take a Will Levis.
Yeah.
If you draft anyone named Will right now, I don't think they'll riot as much. I think the Levis thing would have people way madder than the Anderson.
Yeah. Will Levis would hit, yes, absolutely. It's got to be C.J. Stroud because the Panthers are going to take Bryce Young. And even if you don't love C.J. Stroud, even if you feel, I saw a tweet today, Lamont put out a tweet today, said that this was Jadeveon, that Georgia game by C.J. Stroud was the Jadeveon Clowney Michigan game.
Could be.
And you know what? It probably absolutely is. And yet you're going to have to take C.J. Stroud with that number 2 pick if you feel like your job is on the line here. I don't think there's any question. And so Texans fans, get ready for C.J. Stroud because he's going to be a Houston Texan.